Everyone says they want thought leadership from their subject matter experts. But let's be honest, most teams struggle just to get them on the calendar, let alone excited about helping the marketing team. The real challenge isn't content ideas. We've got plenty of those as marketers. It's actually earning the trust, setting the expectations, and proving that marketing is worth an expert's time. Well, that's exactly what this conversation digs into. In this video, I am joined by Alexandria Diaz. She's the VP of Marketing at Ventra Health, and Marnie Hayutin, founder and CEO of Writing.Health. We're going to unpack how they have built a system together where the SMEs at Ventra Health actually show up and stay engaged. They set crystal clear expectations, they do joint interviewing with experts, and they close the loop and show SMEs what their 30 minutes actually turns into. This conversation gets real about what's actually working to get SMEs to help generate content. Let's get to it.
Sway Health.
Alex, Marnie, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Looking forward to today's conversation. It's on a really fun topic, of course, content and strategy and you leveraging subject matter experts inside your organization. But Alex, before we get started, if you can share with our audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your organization.
Sure. I am the VP of Marketing here at Ventra Health. And Ventra is a revenue cycle management company. So we help practices from everything once they see their patients. They'll hand their notes over to us. So we help with coding, billing, payments, everything to make sure that the practices get paid.
Which is very, very important, right? Practices need to get paid in order to keep afloat. So you provide a very vital service. So thank you for that. And Marnie, just for those that may be listening and watching who don't know who you are, if you can give a quick introduction to yourself.
Thank you. I'm Marnie Hayutin, founder of Writing.Health, and we specialize in all aspects of content and helping companies and practices and healthcare industry professionals get their message across.
Awesome. Well, great to have you both, and I'm looking forward. Let's just dive right in. I got my first question here for you, Alex, and for you, Marnie. Like the Ventra Health team, the way you were explaining it to me, lots of busy professionals on your team, right? You've got physician advisors, you've got who are practicing their specialties, you've got other advisors as well. How do you make content a priority for them? Because it's not their normal job, right? Like they have other things they need to do. So how did you do that? How did you make content a priority for them? And were any of them kind of reluctant to do that kind of work and bring their thought leadership to the fore?
Yeah, well, luckily we have a leader in our CEO who really believes in the marketing team and our demand gen strategy. So as far as, participation, it's just kind of built into the culture. But then also our subject matter experts, I guess kind of by nature of being subject matter experts, they're very passionate about what they do. So we have our physician advisors who are practicing physicians and then work with Ventra as well. Our chief growth officer is still a practicing anesthesiologist, so he's wearing multiple hats. We have coding experts who have been doing medical coding for 20, 30 years and they speak in code. Sometimes I have to ask them to translate what they just said. So luckily, we have people who live and breathe this and are very passionate about it. It's a job, but it's something they also care deeply about. As you mentioned, it's very important for practices to get paid for the just safety net of our country and having these services available to us. So once I get them to sit down, they're always willing to tell their story. And sometimes the finessing is in, can I put your headshot up? Will you do a webinar and like putting a face in front of the name? But generally, they're more than happy to talk about whatever the topic is and contribute to it and make suggestions. Scheduling can get a bit hairy, but we try to plan out as far as advance as possible to make sure that we can, set aside the time. Then I also set expectations as far in advance. when you participate, you know exactly how much time is required of you, from the interview to the review process to whatever's needed. So there's no surprises along the way.
I just wanted to add, as an outside content partner, I think in addition to the culture that they have around content, they also have a culture of respect, and that's particularly strong with Ventra and something that I don't always see. And I think the culture of respect helps it so that they work together in a way that's really quite remarkable. And they also, if they sign on to do something, they're gonna get it done. So it's also a testament to the way they work together, that they are willing to do content together and work together on these projects.
Thank you, Marnie.
Well, and I have a question for both of you because it sounds like Alex that you know your team is pretty willing to share information. Is that because they want to help others? Like because most of the time when I talk to experts, they're I won't say protective of their knowledge, but sometimes they can be. But it sounds like you guys have a culture that's completely opposite to that.
Yeah, it's very open. People are always willing to share. When I was brought on board, I've been at Ventra for a little over 2 years now, and I was brought on to help build our demand generation strategy. And from the beginning, content was at the core of that, but it content that is always leaning on helpful. Whenever we think of a topic or think of how to present things, it's is this going to help inform, educate, or provide any kind of value to our audience? So that's how I approach our content creation. And that is what our SMEs align with as well. Again, because, for, physicians, it's in the nature of what they do. They help people. But we work very closely with our clients. We consider it a partnership more than a business relationship. And in that we're making sure, maybe you're a small independent practice, like we care about your success. We want to make sure you survive. Maybe you're a larger practice and you have all the things that come with growth. We're invested in that. We want to make sure we get you to the level you need to be. So it really is ingrained in the culture. And then, with each other as well. We are always growing and sharing and making sure that everybody has a voice and everybody's listen to because, it's how you grow, having a diverse set of voices and paying attention to what people are saying.
Well, actually, on that note, you do have a lot of different voices. You have a lot of different service lines that you have available at Ventra. How do you balance the content across all of the service lines? And what happens when you get maybe one subject matter expert who's a little bit more prolific, a little more willing to share, and then others? How do you make that all equalize?
Yeah, well, step number one is getting a great writing partner like Marnie because it is a lot of cooks in the kitchen, switching from specialties. We focus on anesthesia, emergency medicine, hospital medicine, radiology is the core ones, and then some other specialties, and then we'll do cross-specialty content. So being able to understand the needs of the business and aligning, okay, what does the emergency, team need right now versus the anesthesia team? And trying to give everybody their fair share while supporting the needs at the time. And then being able to take off one hat and put the other one on, kind of suss out the messages and who the different audiences are. But working with Marnie, she's been an absolutely fantastic partner because not only does she understand the nuances, the differences between the specialties. She's also gotten to understand the different voices of our subject matter experts. And we kind of laugh about like, oh, so and so's, doing the interview today. We kind of know their style and what they're going to bring and kind of how to approach that interview to help with their style. So luckily, we've been able to work with Marnie for I wouldn't say 99% of our content from since I've been there. And she really does help bring the voices out and helps me scale because, we're a small but mighty marketing team and we try to do a lot.
I'm assuming all your SMEs have different styles, different strengths. Can you both maybe share some examples of how you tailor the interview process and the information gathering process? Because I'm assuming it's pretty different for different folks.
So one of the things that I love about working with Alex, we have a really unique tag team kind of approach to this. So Alex does an excellent job of maintaining sort of the Ventra mission, the marketing mission. So we do the interviews together. And so she's able to keep her eye on the questions that will move the marketing message forward and make sure that it meets the overall needs of all the various campaigns. And then that kind of frees me up to just make sure we're getting the story out and that I'm getting the details I need to understand what we're talking about. And make sure that we're telling an interesting story, which is pretty unique. Sometimes I find when we have a lot of people on the call, the marketing person often wants to sort of gatekeep the SMEs, and it sometimes inadvertently gets in the way of the process. This really is very collaborative, and everybody has a chance to say what they need to say, and it just maximizes everyone's time. It works really nicely.
Yeah, I agree. And different people have different styles. So for example, we have one executive who is very busy to, get 30 minutes with him, is hard to do. So I'll prep him, I'll send him a reminder email saying, this is a topic we agreed upon. Remember, if you have bullet points, let me know. We don't always get the bullet points, but Marnie and I know when he gets on the call with us, he will just kind of narrate like what he wants to say, and it really is, super intelligent person. It's all in his head. So he will give us a lot of detail, and then Marnie does a fantastic job of putting that into the proper format, like for a blog or article. And she's fantastic at doing research to helping tie industry resources, back to some of the comments made or to support the stats. Um, so like for him, we just let him go. And then we might ask questions to make sure that we're hitting the points that we need to hit from our goals. When we have group interviews, I get a lot more regimented. Like we have pre-calls, we take notes, and I'll send the notes to Martin in advance because we want to make sure that when you have a bunch of different voices that we're aligned, and everybody's happy with what the narrative is, and that takes a little bit more work. We have, one physician who loves to write his own stuff. I'll get up in the morning, open my inbox, and I'll have a blog from him. I'm like, oh, this is unexpected. And usually it's ready to publish. Sometimes I'll send it to Marnie to like zhuzh a little bit. But like he's fantastic. We have another one that loves to use colloquialism. So when, Marnie writes his stuff, we be sure to keep some of the sayings and that, he likes to see in his articles. So we really do try to make sure that the person is comfortable with the story they're telling, and the writing style matches theirs as much as possible, and you can feel the personality come through.
Actually, I want to go there since you went there. I mean, that's such an interesting challenge and delicate balance in my mind, right? Because as a marketer, all of us, we want to be consistent, right? We want to be consistent in the way our brand is put out there. We want to be consistent in messaging, consistent in tone. Yet on the other side, when you're doing SME type content, you kind of want their personalities to come forward too, right? So how do you strike that right balance between having that consistent voice and, letting the personality shine through?
Yeah, I would say once again, the fact that we use the same writer definitely helps. And Marnie writes a lot of our stuff, but she also writes and has written some of our internal guides. So, how do we talk about what we do? What words do we use? And then we, send that to the organization. So we have a very clear, we're all saying the same thing the same way. So she's written those type of documents for us. So she understands what we say, how we want to say it, and what it means. So that is always reflected in the final product because, she understands it very deeply. Um, and also some pieces, like, some of our more wider published articles, our bigger pieces, it's kind of more the brand voice. But then we have a blog series called Doc to Doc, and it's our physicians talking to other physicians, kind of more in that like, hey, let me tell you, as somebody who's done this or am doing this, and then we just let them, say what they need to say because it really is. It's like, let me tell you, and we want their voice to shine there.
So, Alex, you work with Writing.Health, great organization that Marnie leads, and they're an outside content partner. Can you share how you align to make sure that what Marnie is writing and her team is writing as a ghostwriter matches what the stuff is you want and that what your SMEs want to put out there of themselves?
Sure. As Marty mentioned, we do the interviews jointly. So that helps a lot. It's not that Ventra's doing their own thing and then we throw over the fence and hopefully, it's interpreted correctly. It's strongly collaborative. So we're in the calls together, we're asking the questions. Marnie and I have gotten it down kind of to a science where, I lead the conversation on making sure, okay, brand values, what differentiators do we want to make sure we check off, who is the story targeted at, and making sure we, loop in any kind of facts, content, narrative that we know that that audience will respond to. And then Marnie's really good out about making sure that the story makes sense and pulling out the details of the whys and what are the results. And so that, and we both have deep knowledge of what we've done in the past. So we always try to figure out, okay, where can we pull in something new? Where can we pull in something different? And working together. So I think again, just having that history has really helped us scale, move faster, but then also improve as we've done that. Marnie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things too that Ventra does particularly well is the extraordinary access to very high level SMEs. They set the tone for this. I feel incredibly privileged just to be able to learn from them, but it means that the content that we're putting out there is really insightful. So a lot of times, particularly with AI these days, I see a lot of teams start to create content in a vacuum. The marketing team is kind of recycling the same, 10 ways to reduce denials or something like that. When the SMEs are really involved, like they are here, we're getting real information, and it's so exciting each time to be delivering pieces that are really new information for the readers.
I like that. I like how you do the interviews jointly, right? So you get different perspectives, hear this same information, and then of course make the fact that you're given Marnie the outline of the how you say things, why you say things a certain way, and that kind of really helps to shape the content that's getting created. I like that.
And doing it
Um,
together, we cover it faster, I think. It's really efficient with both of us on there. It's very efficient. There's no rework. There's no additional questions that we should have asked that come up later, because between the two of us, we've got it.
Well, yeah, and then there's that shared context too. Like you were there in the room, right? Or in the virtual room, I guess. Like, when it happened, so you can refer back to like, oh, like this is what remember that point in the conversation where this happened or that happened. It's nice to have that shared context so that when you're collaborating on a piece later on, you have that to refer back to, right?
Yeah.
It's not a black hole.
We love a good transcript. So as we always ask for permission to record, but the transcripts are lifesavers because you can, see what was said, the context in when it was said. Not that people come back and, say, why, where'd you get that? But it's, making sure that, while you're writing it or while you're reviewing it, saying, okay, what exactly did they say? Okay, yeah, this makes sense, or let's change it a little bit, or whatever it is.
And then that goes back to what Alex was saying too about voice. Like there's some that we use their words and we know they don't want them. They will start that way, but there's an SME that I know is okay to change his words, that he doesn't want to speak the same way he writes. So that's sort of a fun thing that we come to know over time, is who wants to see their exact words in there and who doesn't.
Right, and that goes back to what you're saying before, Alex. Working with one writer, one organization, it allows you to have that shared taxonomy of language, right? Hey, this person prefers it this way, that person prefers it another way, and so it makes the writing a lot quicker. Whereas if you maybe had a larger organization working with you, you might get an inconsistency, so you end up having to go back and forth and ping pong that document or that content a lot more, right? Because it's not reflecting the voice properly.
Yeah, exactly. And then we've had that before, some of the more difficult topics where, or something that we're not aligned on internally. We've already done the interview. We have to go like tear it apart, put it back together. But that's another thing that's great to work with Marnie on, because once you have I like to call it a Franken doc, where there's been full editing and I'm trying to interpret what they are trying to say, or there's a comment that's very vague and it's like, what exactly do you want? But then I'll throw it over to Marnie. It's like, hey, remember you wrote this 2 months ago? Well, it's the same story, but not really. But can you read through it, make sure it makes sense, and make sure it's professional, because it's stitched together at this point.
Alex, I want to go back to something you mentioned off the top. You mentioned scheduling and getting on people's calendars. I'm going to assume that's kind of challenging given the daily work that your SMEs are doing. And then, of course, on the follow on, like after the content is created, like getting them to review it and then give the stamp of approval on it. How do you manage all of that at an organization like Ventra?
Yeah, I like to plan as far in advance as possible. I love to plan content a quarter beforehand. Doesn't always work like that, but when I can, I do. So, knowing what we want to say, I'll have content planning meetings with the SMEs, so the business unit leaders, and then, the provider education team, the strategic advisors, anybody who's working directly with the clients, and saying, okay, what are you seeing? What's important? And then, like, what are we going to talk about next quarter? So that buy-in up front is really important. So it's not oh, marketing's telling us to do this blog. It's we decided we're going to talk about this topic, and then marketing's, driving the train to get everything together. Um, and then working with our wonderful EA team, they are magicians when it comes to scheduling. But again, our executives are really bought in on our content strategy. So they want to be there. And if they can't make it, they're always very apologetic, but they usually make sure that if they say, we're going to do an interview at this time, they're there. They might be in the airport or in a taxi or on a boat or hang gliding or wherever. These people are all over the place, but they will call in and they will contribute. And it's funny, one of our BU presidents, I always tease him, I'll send something out and I'll get like, he reviewed it, he left his comments like 20 minutes later, and I'll give him a gold star. And he's like, well, I know this is important. I was like, I know, and I know, but like the fact that you're always so consistent, I really appreciate it because I know you have a million things going on right now.
I
I think
love that. I don't think I can. I was just picturing in my head somebody doing an interview in the back of a taxi. That's or back of an Uber. That is hilarious.
Happens all the time.
I gotta ask this though, because we've talked about scheduling, we've talked about sort of the approval process, we've talked about the creative process that happens behind the scenes, but what is the biggest challenge that Ventra has in managing so many subject matter experts? And is there one that you feel you do pretty well?
I guess the biggest challenge is when there's too many ideas.
Mhm.
Right. We don't have a lot of resources. So and we have, the four different specialties. So sometimes you have to say no or, not now or wait till next quarter, which is, a horrible thing to say when you have somebody who's wanting to work with you. Um, I would say that's probably the hardest thing. And I guess what I do well, I can give bad news or, say no very nicely. So being able to, get everybody on the same page, and have them understand like why we can't do this right now, what the bigger picture is, and offer alternatives that actually fit into my marketing plan or what I need to do anyway, and kind of check all the boxes and keep everybody happy.
the biggest challenge I think on the writing end sometimes is some of the SMEs are brilliant about explaining what the problem is and explaining what the challenge is. And sometimes the hardest part for me is to get that. What are the key points that we want to say? What are the three things you can do now that will help? So I think from a writing standpoint, sometimes that's the challenge because they're so good at describing the problem that getting the how do I adequately explain what the solution is sometimes is hard.
Well, I mean, we're getting close to the end of our time here on this episode, but I have to ask this one of both of you. Any last minute advice that you could offer to other marketers who may want to do something similar with their SMEs and who may not be as successful as you are, both are, in this situation? What advice would you give to them?
Oh, gee, I would say don't be deterred if it's hard to get your foot in the door and get people to cooperate. Don't give up. Sometimes you have to show your value before people can appreciate. Um, not a great thing, but depending on how marketing is perceived in your organization or your output, you want to make sure that people understand. If I give 30 minutes of my time to Alex and Marnie today, there will be this fantastic blog, 6 weeks from now, and I'll get all the praise for it. So, when you do the thing, show them that, hey, this is what this is. If you have results that you can share, definitely promote your work and promote the outcome so people can understand it's not quote unquote just a blog. Show them how it fits into your overall plan and show them how they're contributing and what the overall big picture is. That, and then I would also say respect their time and their effort and make sure you're doing what you said you would do. So that, doesn't get put on the back burner for 3 months for, no reason, or it's not put together hastily. So, treat their investment, with respect, and get the most out of it, and make sure they understand that.
I would say if there's a way to show them the difference between when they're involved and when they're not involved. The kind of information that gets out there when marketing's kind of working on our own, doing outside research and trying to figure it out is very different than when you have those internal leaders sharing their real opinions and thoughts and insights. So it makes such a difference. So if we can show that, hopefully that'll help them see the real difference in content when they're involved.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I have one more.
For
Um,
sure.
I have to say, be open to who you consider to be a SME, right? Because, at Venture, we have our strategic advisors who are physicians. Like, obviously, they're going to be, very good people to talk to because they're knowledgeable about the people who, practice medicine. But we have a coding education team who sits, behind the scenes a lot, but they are a wealth of knowledge. It's a different type of content, is, more technical in a sense. But they're a great resource too. Clients are a great resource. Executives can be a great resource. So definitely keep your mind open because that'll give you a more diverse set of content, and more content overall that you can play with.
Listen, we're at the end of our time, but thank you so much for sharing all the great information. Before we go, Alex, where can people go to learn more about Ventra Health?
So ventrahealth.com is our website. A lot of it is written by Marnie, so it is a fantastic site. Yeah, so you can find us there. You could also find us on LinkedIn, Twitter/X, all the socials.
Awesome. And Marnie, what about you? Where can people go to connect with you?
Thank you. Writing.health is also the URL, writing.health. So everything you need is there. Thank you.
Well, thank you to both for being on the program. Really appreciate all the fantastic information you shared with us today.
Thank
Great.
you. It was great to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. This was great. And thank you, Marnie, for being such a great partner and inviting Ventra to do this with you.
Oh, thank you for doing this. It was wonderful.
We opened this conversation with a familiar frustration. Everyone wants thought leadership from their experts, but very few marketing teams have figured out how to make it sustainable and, frankly, respectful. What Alex and Marnie showed is that when expectations are crystal clear and collaboration is real, and the outcomes of that collaboration is made visible, SMEs don't need to be chased. They, in fact, lean in. I love how they treat content like a true partnership, not as a favor to marketing. I think their advice of showing how an expert's time turns into real value is something I'm going to take to heart. And hey, if you've made it this far in the video, we'd really appreciate your help by mashing that like button, clicking subscribe, or writing a nice comment below. Oh, and also head over to Sway Health. That's Sway with 2 A's, .health, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.